2 years ago, in August 2017, our country suffered the trauma of the Unite the Right rally, a gathering of white supremacists in Charlottesville, Virginia, who chanted racist and anti-Semitic slogans while carrying rifles and Nazi symbols. As you know, 19 people were injured and Heather Heyer was killed. Ever since that dreadful time, we've marked the month of August at Betham by inviting a faith leader and friend from the community to address our congregation, simply through their presence reinforcing the message that we are not alone and that we stand together with other communities of faith against bigotry and violence. Tonight we are truly honored to welcome Reverend Kathi McShane, who is Senior Pastor of Los Altos United Methodist Church. Reverend McShane has had a somewhat unusual path to the ministry. After graduating from UC Davis with a BA in Public Service and Political Science, she attended law school at UC Berkeley, then practiced law in San Francisco, Oakland, and Walnut Creek for 15 years, specializing in business and real estate litigation. During those years, she says her life was very busy and full. And then, she writes, after some significant changes in my personal life, my husband and law partner died suddenly at a very young age. I left the practice of law and went to seminary, thinking that I might enter a new career teaching ethics. Gradually, one step at a time, I moved toward ministry, which I see as taking the stories of an ancient and truthful religious tradition and retelling them in a way that gives meaning to life in this place at this time. Reverend McShane earned her master's in divinity from Pacific School of Religion in Berkeley and served as vice president of the Pacific School of Religion for 8 years. She's led United Methodist churches in Alamo, San Ramon Valley, Sacramento, and Campbell before beginning her appointment in Los Altos in July 2017. The title of her talk tonight is Dogkeit. This is a Yiddish word. Stay tuned for what it means. Please welcome Reverend Kathi McShane.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much for inviting me to be with you this evening. I think this is the last evening of your summer worship outside. And I would guess that you might have the same mix of feelings that all of us at Los Altos United Methodist Church have right now. We're ready. We're anticipating the fall with excitement. We like our regular routines we are just getting back into. And still, I wish that summer would last just a little bit longer. So you have heard a little bit of my biography, but let me take just another minute and tell you a little bit more about who I am and where I come from. In our United Methodist system, once you are ordained clergy, you go where your bishop sends you. It's kind of like being in the Army. So in 2017, I moved from the distant land of Campbell to Los Altos. But I have lived in the Bay Area my whole life. Born in Oakland, educated at 2 University of California campuses. As you heard, I practiced law for 15 years, mostly restlessly, before the circumstances of my life threw me up in the air and I landed on the road toward ministry, which is, as it turns out, is where I belong. Like the Exodus people whose tradition you and I share, I think I needed to wander in the desert for a long time first. Actually, I was still wandering when I started seminary. I arrived there not so motivated by faith as I was by knowing that I needed to move in a different direction. My first seminary semester in seminary, I took a class called Spirituality of the World's Religions. And every week the class exercised the prayer and contemplative practices of each of the world's major religious traditions, which of course is a lovely form of religious tourism. At every stop, I thought I might become a practitioner of that beautiful religion. Hinduism, Taoism, Buddhism, Islam. I spent a substantial amount of time that year thinking I might convert and study to become a rabbi. But the draw of your birth tradition is a strong one, and Christianity was the last religion we studied. This is how we make the big decisions of our lives. Still, I have always been drawn to the stories of Hebrew scriptures. My preaching now is as often from the tradition that Jesus practiced as it is from the stories of Jesus himself. So this summer at my church we did a series where we dug more deeply into the book of Jonah. That funny, surprising, wonderful little story about the prophet who did everything he could to run away from God, and who only got to where God wanted him to go because a big fish swallowed him and then spit him out in the place he belonged. As I was thinking about Jonah, I discovered a story that was published in 1953 called The Man Who Planted Trees. It's a sort of contemporary parable, and here it is in very short form. The story begins in 1913, as the narrator was on a solo hiking trip through the Provence region of France and into the Alps. He walks through miles of unspoiled wilderness, but he runs out of water in a valley that is completely desolate. No trees, nothing growing. There is no trace of life in this valley, only some old, empty, crumbling buildings. There's a well, but it's all dried up. A shepherd comes along, and he leads the hiker to a natural spring where there is fresh water. The hiker is curious about this man who seems to live alone in this God-forsaken place. Why is he here? Why would he choose to live here? Turns out the shepherd had been widowed, and his only son had died too. After his family was gone, he had just had no more tolerance for living in a city where the pace and the character of life had become grinding and life-defeating. Instead of lifting the people up, industrial progress had weighed them down. Ambition and competition had turned them toward conflict with one another. And the quality of their lives was not good. The shepherd couldn't stand the way they had destroyed the land around them. For the sake of a life they didn't even make them happy. So he left, and he moved into this silent space. Even loneliness and desolation were preferable to the ruined city he had left behind. That night, while the shepherd was telling his story to the hiker, he poured a sack of acorns onto the table between them. And he began to sift through those acorns for the good ones, the ones that looked like they might have a live seed inside of them. And the next day, the hiker walked alongside the shepherd as he climbed up to a ridge with a bag of acorns on his back. Every few feet, the shepherd would dig his metal walking stick a few inches into the ground, just enough to make a small hole. He would drop an acorn into every hole, and he covered it with dirt. The shepherd had been doing this same thing every day for 3 years. He was planting oak trees. 100,000 acorns he had planted, he figured. And about 20,000 of those had sprouted. And of those 20,000, he said too, he said. He was thinking about birch in the valley, where there was more natural moisture. Well, the hiker stayed with the shepherd for only a few days. But some years later, after he came back from fighting in World War I, he went back to that desolate place. He wanted to see the shepherd again. But now, he saw thousands of young trees that had taken root. Some of them were taller than he was. There were new streams that flowed from places where the shepherd had dragged logs to dam up places in the mountains where the snow would melt. Somehow, with no tools and no technology, very little design, no more than a 10% success rate, the shepherd seemed to have started a chain reaction in the forest. Now the wind carried seeds from one plant to another piece of ground. Birds had come back, and bees. The lonely man who lived in the forest, in the valley, never spoke publicly about his work, and no one else saw him do it. So when the professional foresters came from the government to look at what was happening, the only thing they could see was a strange sort of natural phenomenon, a regeneration they couldn't explain. The shepherd's name was Bouffier. For 4 decades, Bouffier planted trees, one acorn at a time. Only about 10% of them survived. But over those 40 years, the valley came back. It began to look almost like a Garden of Eden. And by the end of World War II, even as the rest of France was largely ruined in the war, this valley remained vibrant with life. People moved there. Children played in the forest. All because of the tenacity of one man, who one acorn at a time created goodness in a place where there had been none to be found, a place that everyone else had given up on. So there's this Yiddish word that you may know already, but I didn't until just recently, Dokite, which means here-ness, H-E-R-E, here-ness. It means making your home wherever you are, digging in deeply for well-being, your own and the well-being of this community, this job, this school, this country. It's believing that where we are right now is our home, that this is where we will find kinship, where we will plant trees no matter what the landscape looks like now, no matter how we got here. You might remember that the story of Jonah results in the repentance, the turning around of the whole city of Nineveh, that capital of the brutal Assyrian Empire, a country where it was hard to find a shred of goodness and mercy. There's a tiny but wonderful piece of that story, easy to overlook. When Jonah finally got to Nineveh and prophesied about the country's corruption, it was the people, the regular people, who heard him and mourned their country's evil. It was their repentance, not Jonah's warning, that convinced a stubborn king to take the action that saved their country. I think God is always looking for agents of redemption. People who will be persistent enough, hear enough, to find and pick up and regenerate the seeds of goodness that remain, no matter how bad things have gotten. The stories tell us that God can save a forest with one heartbroken, introverted shepherd. A whole city with one reluctant prophet. So who knows what God might do with us in this place if we are absorbed